Welcome to the Nifty Chicks. In this episode, we chat with Debbie Soon, co-founder of the TheHUG project. TheHUG is all about inclusiveness and education. The project recently rolled out an accelerator program to help projects get started and help them be more successful. Let's do this.
Welcome to the Nifty Chicks. We are so excited to have Debbie Soon here from TheHUG, which if anybody's been listening to these our Nifty Chicks episodes, you know that Minty Cell and myself are huge fans of TheHUG and everything that they're doing. So we're so excited to be talking with Debbie Soon. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
We are so good. So good. Yeah, Minty Cell, just so you know, Minty Cell is traveling. She is living the dream up in Colorado. She actually just had her birthday, so she is
happy birthday.
Super fun.
Thank you.
All right, Debbie, so we want to hear all about your story, really kicking off with your background. If you could kind of introduce yourself to our audience and let us know who you are and a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It is an honor and excited to be chatting with you both. I guess a little bit about me. I'm Singapore born and raised. I currently live in Los Angeles. I moved there last year at the start of last year in the middle of COVID. I guess I got my career started off in finance. So was actually an investor. Spent 7 years in finance, really focused on the consumer sector. So I've always been really passionate about anything consumer. So anything from restaurants, e-commerce, retail, all of the fun stuff. About 2 to 3 years into my finance journey, kind of realized that it wasn't really for me. So founded my first business as a little side hustle. And that was actually an indoor cycling studio. So it was kind of Singapore's version of SoulCycle at the time. This was back in 2014, 2015. At the time, boutique fitness was still something that was getting started in Singapore. There were a lot of yoga studios, but it wasn't any other kind of discipline. So wanted to do that. So ran that for a couple of years, sold the business. And then finally, after I left my finance career 4 years ago, that was when I really formally went into startups full time. I was still in Singapore at the time. So I joined this startup that was, I guess had about like 200 people. So it wasn't small, but it wasn't like super big either. We were actually in the live sports business. So the company was called One Championship. I guess if you're familiar with the UFC, it's essentially Asia's competitor to the UFC. So there I worked directly for the CEO, got a lot of hands-on startup experience, really kind of building. I was just startup within a startup person. So over the span of 3 years, really helped to launch 3 new businesses from scratch, from starting a new entering a new market, which is Japan, to starting an esports and gaming business, to starting an e-commerce business as well. So finally, after 3 very grueling years, decided to kind of explore the next chapter of my life. And that's when I ended up moving to LA last year. It was a tough move in the beginning because I didn't really know anybody, and it was obviously COVID. So it was hard to go out and meet people. And that's kind of when I started getting really excited about Web3 and NFTs. And I think NFTs in particular just really spoke to me, just given my consumer background. I really look at NFTs as consumer goods on the blockchain. And so that was just a natural path for me to explore. I really love entrepreneurship. So I love working in early stage startups. I was putting some feelers out, and then I guess as luck would have it, I connected with Randy Zuckerberg on Discord. And yeah, it was pretty funny because at the time I wasn't even using my real name. Like I was using an avatar for a profile picture, but I guess we got into a Zoom call, a couple of days later, and then the rest of it was history pretty much. We joined forces pretty quickly. That was in February. And I guess it's been about 6 months now, like 6-7 months. And it's felt like much longer, obviously. But it's been such a pleasure and honor working alongside her and building TheHUG.
That's amazing. You have such an incredible story. I mean, I feel like you've lived 9 lives already and you're so young. Like you've got an incredibly impressive resume. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because this is a question that I always ask all of our guests, because a lot of our audience are fairly new to the Web3 and NFT space. I want to hear about your journey into really like the point in which someone told you about NFTs, to the point in which it made sense to you, to the point in which you said, okay, I'm going all in. Let's do this. I want to hear kind of what that kind of transition sounds like for you.
Oh my gosh, I love that question. I would say that I guess starting with crypto, like my first introduction to crypto was somewhere in the middle of 2019. I was still in Singapore at the time. My partner was saying that, oh, you should buy some crypto, like, without much explanation. Like, honestly, I had no real idea what it was. I had obviously heard of Bitcoin. And even back then in Singapore, there weren't that many exchanges. So it was just really hard to even figure out, like, how do I even go about like buying crypto? So anyway, in 2019, bought a little bit of crypto. Honestly, it was just like a small amount of money that I probably wouldn't have missed. Like, and I think my plan was just to kind of revisit it like in, I don't know, like 10 years from now. So I guess I would say I pretty much kind of forgot about the money that I had there. I guess, yeah, last year in 2021, that was when obviously all of the headlines were all about NFTs. There were all of these sensational headlines about, Beeple's piece selling for like a crazy amount of money. And in my mind, I was just like, what? Like, I kind of get what NFTs are, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, why can't anybody just right click and save like all of this stuff?
Yeah.
Honestly, I was just, whatever. These are just those fun little headlines that I'm not really going to pay any attention to. I think at some point I was on a path of looking for my next career move. Like, I had been in LA for a year. I had like started getting to know a few people and was also just in the market looking for a new job. And I knew I wanted it to be startup related, but frankly was fairly open to what that would look like. During this time, I guess I started going on Twitter. I was just browsing, and somebody that I had connected with, like a mentor of mine, basically tweeted about Meta Angels and just said, "Oh, I'm really excited for this Twitter space with Meta Angels." And I was like, "What on earth is this?" But this was somebody that I respected, so kind of did a little bit of digging. I guess the founders are friends with this mentor of mine, so it felt like, okay, at least I'm not being scammed, right? Like, these seem like intelligent people whom I respect, and I think that's what really kind of encouraged me to dive deeper into it. And so got Discord. I didn't have Discord before, so like downloaded Discord, like set up an account, and even at that point my Twitter, like I was just using it more for lurking. Like, I would read celebrity news, sports news, occasionally just kind of go in and see what interesting content was there. But yeah, I think from that entire experience, just set aside 2 full days where I really solidly went down the rabbit hole, was reading a lot of long, medium articles. Actually, the one that I think really kind of helped me, really convinced me, was this really, really long article by the founder of Curious Addies. So written by Ben. And that article was like insanely long, but it was just so well written and so compelling that I think by the end of it, I was just, gosh, I think I'm a convert. And actually, I think another really interesting, fun article by the New York Magazine of all like publications. And I still remember the name of the article. It was A Normie's Guide to Understanding Crypto or something. And it was just written in such a way that was very welcoming and beginner friendly. And so I think at the end of those 2 days, it just kind of hit me like a light bulb, where I felt that if I didn't go into it now, like I'm at this rare opportunity where, I don't have a job presently, so I could really do whatever I wanted next, and I could really start on it right away. And I just felt, if I don't do this now, I'm going to look back at this moment like a few years from now and really regret it. And I think I just kept thinking about my parents who were so skeptical about e-commerce. Like, they wouldn't buy anything online when that first happened. And then now obviously they do all of their shopping online. And I just thought, gosh, I couldn't be, I don't know if you've seen a Prudential commercial, but I didn't want to be like my parents. And so that was when I really like kind of decided, all right, I'm going to commit myself. Like, I'm just going to put myself out there. I still think that we're really early. And that basically happened over the span of a few days.
I love that story. That light bulb moment that you talk about is something that, like, I think all of us talk openly about, because it doesn't make sense until it makes sense. And like, it's the most bizarre thing, because I don't feel like I've ever experienced something like that, where something really didn't make sense, and then with it, like just a couple of words by someone explaining it in a way that like I can digest, it's like, my gosh, how did I not think this made sense? I absolutely love that story. Thanks for sharing that. So talk to me about like HUG. So for our audience who may not be familiar with HUG and the project of HUG, talk to us about, HUG. What was like really the goal of HUG, and the intent of the project? Like, what's the mission? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, HUG is a social curation and discovery platform, as well as an accelerator program for current and aspiring creators in Web3. The overall mission is really to level the playing field for anyone to succeed in this new world that we're operating in. And, we like to call it the inclusiveness, a place that is inclusive, where everybody feels like they belong. And I guess how it really started was when I met Randy on Discord. Randy had at that point been mentoring like a number of projects, I guess more in a personal capacity. So she was mentoring Boss Beauty, she was mentoring Curious Addies that I had already mentioned. And she was really looking to see how she could kind of scale this, I guess, basically scale mentorship and advice to, young creative entrepreneurs who maybe had an artist background, but didn't really have much of a business background. And so that was something that, obviously I thought was really exciting. It appealed to me. We made the announcement that we were working on this together, like open a round of applications. And I think we were expecting to get like 10 to 20 applications. We got 200 applications in 24 hours. And so I think it suddenly hit us that, great, we definitely still want to continue working hand in hand with these creators, but we have to, like, we want to do even more. And the only way that we could do more is that if we leverage the power of the community and leverage a platform to really bring that to life. And I think one of the biggest problems that we see creators facing in this space is that of discoverability. I think right now, obviously, Twitter is extremely noisy. Or like, you go onto Discord, it's also extremely noisy. OpenSea has every single collection. You're not even sure which one is real, which one is not. And there just isn't that filter for, what is a legitimate project and what isn't. And I think back to the whole discussion around diversity and equity and inclusion, we know that this space, unfortunately, is still very male dominated and white male dominated. And creators from, underrepresented communities just have a tougher time, standing out, because the circles that we're operating in, the people that we're talking to, is just not, part of the bigger conversation. And so, we wanted to really build a platform that would allow people to discover these projects that they loved and that they resonated with. And that beyond the speculation and the hype, people are actually looking to discover artists and businesses that they want to support, and they can proudly say that they're putting their money and whether it's money or whether it's just emotional support behind that. And so that's really the genesis of HUG. And yeah, I think and the Creator Accelerator has continued to go on. We're actually mentoring over 40 different projects, founders, and artists right now. So yeah, lots of things going on.
I can't imagine how busy you are. Like, that sounds like a lot. And it's really exciting. We have the pleasure of speaking with so many project leaders and, talking about their challenges, talking about their successes. I'd love to hear from you kind of what was one of the unexpected challenges that you faced with HUG?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, we started HUG around a time where it was still it was still in the middle of the bull market.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of women-led projects were getting a lot of attention, starting with like World of Women, Boss Beauties, even Crypto Coven, like a whole bunch of various women-led projects were just doing really well as part of the overall like frothiness or bullishness of the market. Mm-hmm. And I think we felt really strongly that having this approach where we were targeting marginalized communities, that was something, I mean, not only was that true to our ethos and our mission, but we also felt like that would resonate in terms of like brand awareness and people just wanting to support these causes. I think as time has gone on, and obviously the market environment is very different now, like I think what we realize is that this is still, unfortunately, the space is very male dominated. And even though there are a lot more women today than there were in the beginning of the year, I think at some point I started realizing that we were in the same rooms talking to the same people about the same topics, and we weren't actually getting the message out there. And so like, and I've always firmly believed that you can't really blame like anyone for the circumstances that you're in. And so rather than, and obviously we want there to be male allies and everything, but rather than waiting for men to come to us, like, is there a way that we can kind of go out there and get our name out there? So I would say that's probably like an unexpected challenge. I thought that, oh, you know, everyone would be really excited to support like underrepresented founders and creators. But I would say that there's still like a bunch of heavy lifting there to do for sure.
Yeah, that's you bring up a really good point. So I also have a traditional finance background, and I feel personally that the Web3 space is much better at welcoming women into the space than the traditional, finance world, Wall Street world.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear your take on like going from the traditional finance world to Web3. Are you seeing like, are we making the right progress in Web3, or are you thinking like, wow, this is just a virtual version of Wall Street?
No, I mean, I think I definitely, I definitely do think that Web3 in general, I've been able to find little pockets where you can really find like a group of people that share your values in a way that is much easier than the traditional finance world. I think when you're in the traditional finance world, it's really about who you know, and like, is that person going to make an introduction to you? It's very hierarchical. Whereas I feel like in Web3, it's almost like everybody is on a clean slate and having a fresh start. Like even people who have been here for like a really long time, like they've been here, like 2.5 years. So, it's not, I guess it's different in like, I guess Wall Street or like the banking side of things where, people have actually been there for like 20, 30 years and institutions are like much older. So in that sense, I would say that it is easier to kind of make a name for yourself, to kind of step out of your comfort zone and really put yourself out there. But I think at the same time, like, there are, unfortunately, I think that's just what happens when the demographics are skewed. And it's not necessarily that people are like malintentioned. It just is an outcome of, all of the systems that have been in place, right? Crypto came from the tech industry, which is still very male dominated, even though progress has been made. And I think you'll see that even in spaces, right? Even like big spaces. And then you notice that every single one of the speakers are male. And it's not that it's deliberate. I don't think that the organizers of the space or the organizers of the conference are, are deliberately saying that, oh, we're not going to have female speakers, but it's just sort of an outcome and like a blind spot. And I think another good example is that at, say, Web3 conferences, there are always these odd number of panels where it's about like women in Web3. Like the panel is about women in Web3, and it's just like a bunch of women on the panel talking about wider in Web3. And like, as opposed to that, like it should be just women being on these Web3 panels, being able to share their experiences. And I think like what came off as a well-intentioned, gesture to have a panel, to curate a panel featuring women in Web3, it actually does the opposite, where it's almost like we're put into this like special little like room where like, no one else is supposed to hear us speak, and not really giving us a platform to be alongside everybody else.
Oh my gosh, you touched on such a great point. So Minty Cell and I had the opportunity to be on a all women panel, which was so much fun. And we had a blast, and we feel like we made the most of it. But I looked around at NFT NYC at the various panels and speakers, and you're not kidding. Like most of the panels that had women on it were all women. And I was thinking about like the purpose of the reason why we want to be inclusive of women, of people of color, of minorities, everyone, is so that there's a diverse thought process and diverse thinking. And when you have all women on the stage, it's empowering. It makes us feel good, but we're not getting the diversity that this whole thing is intended for. So like having men and women on the same stage, just and every sort of kind of minority on the stage together, that's where the best thinking comes about. And so you're right, it's not malintended, and I actually think like it's a sweet intention it is sweet, but it's like totally not, it's not checking the box, and it is missing the mark big time. But
100%.
Interesting. So I want to hear about kind of, it sounds like you're doing so many incredible things right now. I don't know how you have the time to do it all, but I want to hear kind of what does the future look like for you and for HUG?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, maybe I'll start off with Hug. So we just released our live beta last month. It's still everything is still work in progress, but we wanted to show what we've been working on. So if you go into TheHUG.xyz, like it's definitely not perfect, but we wanted to give people a look or a sense of what we have been building. We have more product releases coming out right now. The website is pretty much just a directory, so you can discover projects right now, but you can't really do much more than that. And we really want to encourage everyone to interact with the platform, to leave the reviews, to eventually start curating their lists of favorite projects as well as favorite artists, and really make this a fun. Like I think curation is something that should be fun and should be done together. And we really wanted to approach this where right now we're all doing our own research, but let's do our own research together. And that's where and then let's archive that. I mean, not archive that, but let's have a record of it rather than it being lost like in Discord and then you can't find, what the discussions were. So, that's why we're really leaning towards, and, we're obviously hoping to get more and more user feedback, and we'll tweet that along the way. So I would say that's what's coming for HUG. Our accelerator program, like we just closed applications for this upcoming cohort in October. So we're excited to be reviewing those applications, also in talks with a number of partners to potentially bring some themed cohorts in the future. So I'm very thrilled and excited about that. And really is about how do we spotlight and upskill creators who are new to Web3. So I would say that's what we have in store at HUG. And for myself personally, like I think one thing that I love about being in Web3 is that I learn so much every single day. The space obviously moves so fast, and it's sometimes intimidating, but also really exciting to be at the forefront of technology, I guess, and to be forefront of like development in not just technology, but also culture. So it is really fun to be like part of that, to be a part of that conversation. And I've just been feeling, that I've been being upskilled as well. And also being connected to so many talented creators and being able to be a part of their journey, their success journey. That's something that's personally really rewarding for me.
Oh, I love it. I fully share that sentiment of like, it's in this space more than I think any other space. I feel, and this is going to sound so bad, but I'm going to use the word, and it's not like, a bad word in my mind, but I feel dumb. I feel like there's so much that I don't know. It's so humbling. And I've been in this space for now about actually just over a year, thanks to Minty Cell. She's the one that brought me into this space and introduced me to NFTs. And really, like, I can't believe how much I don't know. So it's very humbling, and it's like really an opportunity for people who love learning. This is such an awesome space for that. So I totally share that. A couple more questions. One being for our listeners who are mostly all new to the space, do you have any advice for particularly women or minorities coming into the space who may feel a little overwhelmed? Any advice for newbies to the space?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is an overwhelming space, and I think like we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, most of the times it just seems completely crazy and confusing and like wild why anyone would even be interested in NFTs or crypto or Web3 in general. And there is always that light bulb moment. So I would say that for anybody that is brand new to the space, keep an open mind, but at the same time also be patient. Like I felt like I fell into the rabbit hole pretty quickly, but for some people it takes time to get over that skepticism. And frankly, if I were to look at since the time that I actually started getting involved in crypto, if you will, that was like in 2019. So it took me probably a good like 2.5 years before I fully rid myself of that skepticism. So, it takes time, I guess. Just be open, be curious, keep asking questions, and also be safe. I guess the good thing, I mean, we love things that are decentralized. I think that's what the appeal of the technology is what we're all trying to explore here. But that also means that, safety and security is something that everybody is still working on. So always kind of do that research and find a community that's welcoming. Hug is a good one. We're always here to answer questions, and no judgment whatsoever. We were all beginners once.
Oh, I love that. Okay, great. And so anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, would love it if you could visit our website at TheHUG.xyz, or follow us on Twitter at TheHUG.xyz, or just even say hi to me on Twitter. I'm at Deb Soon. I mostly respond to all of my DMs. I'm always here to really support anybody that's new on their Web3 journey, whether you're an artist or whether you're just someone looking to kind of understand the space a little bit better, or even make that career transition switch. I feel like I got my start in Web3 mostly because a lot of people were just very generous with their time, and would even give me the time of day. And I really believe that because we're also early still, that giving and this spirit of giving and the spirit of giving without expecting anything in return actually goes a really long way. So that's something that I feel like I benefited from at the start of my journey, and I still benefit from today. And so I'm always looking to kind of pay it forward and return the favor.
That is amazing. Debbie, you have been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And Minty-san, I know you're having some trouble with your connection, but we know that you're still with us, following along and sharing some notes with us. So thank you so much, Debbie, for your time. We will be sure to follow you, and would love to, have you back on the show in the future, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Great. Thanks, Debbie.
Oh, that was such a good conversation. I'm so bummed that you didn't get a chance to really participate in the conversation, because I know you were, not in the best location for Wi-Fi, but glad you got a chance to listen in. What'd you think?
I know. Unfortunately, traveling and technology don't always cooperate. So I could not be a part of that interview, but I did get to hear it. And oh my gosh, Debbie is amazing. She has like a brilliant background, and I really do. I love the Hug project and what they're doing. I don't know if we should mention this or not, but we may or may not have applied for the accelerator program. So stay tuned. There could be some super exciting news coming your way soon.
That's right. Yeah. Such a good conversation. You hit the nail on the head.
I didn't even mean to do that. Do you know what I just said? Soon. And her last name's Debbie Soon. Right? Yeah. So thank you, Jenna, for, taking the lead on that, since I wasn't able to participate.
Of course. That's what we do.
That's right. So I just want to say thanks, everybody, for listening. And we would love it if you would give a subscribe on YouTube, and be sure to click that bell, because that's how you get notified whenever there's a new episode available.
That's right. And as always, thank you so much again for listening to the Nifty Chicks. Always remember, invest in yourself. You are worth it. Please listen carefully to the following disclaimer. Neither the host nor the guests of the Nifty Chicks podcast are acting in the capacity of financial advisors. We wish to remain transparent and impartial to the NFT community at all times, and therefore, the content provided by the Nifty Chicks hosts and guests are intended for general information purposes only. Nothing written or discussed by the Nifty Chicks hosts and guests should be construed or relied upon as investment, financial, legal, regulatory, accounting, tax, or similar advice. Nothing should be interpreted as a solicitation to invest in any cryptocurrency or NFT, and nothing herein should be construed as a recommendation to engage in any investment strategy or transaction. Please be advised that it is in your own best interest to consult with investment, legal, tax, or similar professionals regarding any specific situation and any prospective transaction decisions. You must do your own research when considering investing in cryptocurrencies or NFTs. We are simply sharing our journey with you as we learn more about the world of NFTs. Happy minting.